Members of an indigenous people group in Mindanao have long fought for their rights over ancestral lands. They do this despite threats of harassment and danger posed by the military's presence and that of other armed groups. These supposedly include the use of schools as barracks and military personnel functioning as teachers in public high schools. Civic groups are now calling for the pullout of soldiers from Lumad communities as they cite reports of human rights violations, forced evacuation, and displacement. Justice Secretary Laila de Lima has called for an interagency body that would conduct an independent probe on the supposed militarization of Lumad territories. So we ask, is the armed forces to blame for the violence against Lumad groups in Mindanao? Join our discussion here on Agenda.
I am Malu Tikia and this is Agenda. Our debate question for today: is the AFP to blame for the violence against Lumad tribes in Mindanao? Find out here on Agenda, where opinions clash, making sense of today's most relevant issues. Guest for today, Secretary General of Human Rights Group Karapatan, Cristina Palabay, and Lieutenant Colonel Jake Obligado, Chief Information Officer of the Armed Forces, Eastern Mindanao Command. Thank you very much for coming over and joining us today. Let us start off our discussion. Tina, I'd like to ask you, is the Armed Forces to blame for the displacement and violence against Lumad tribes in Mindanao?
Yes, for the simple reason that for the past 3 to 5 years under the Aquino administration, most of the documented cases of forced evacuation and cases of killings in Mindanao are targeted, those communities that were targeted were Lumad communities, especially communities where progressive indigenous peoples leaders are working and establishing schools that will cater to the needs of the Lumad children.
Oh, you're saying there is militarization in indigenous people's communities?
Especially in indigenous people's communities, in Mindanao.
In Mindanao. Colonel, your take?
I think that is her opinion. But the main purpose of us present in the community is to protect the people. Protecting them from harm's way of the New People's Army. We are there because of the heavy presence of the New People's Army.
In the area,
yes,
of the IPs?
Yes. Secondly, we need to deliver the basic services when it comes to health, education, infrastructure, water, electricity. Those are the services needed by the brothers and sisters who are Lumads in the area.
But isn't that the work of the local government units?
We are facilitating. That's the reason why some groups are going there, because they think that these services are not being delivered. So we need to let the people feel the presence of the government.
You're denying there is no militarization?
We need to define first what militarization is.
No, but I'm asking you, is there an operation? Is there a current operation in the area?
Exactly the point. Because there is a very different definition of militarization from the UN point of view.
Okay, let me, Tina, as far as you're concerned, having been working in the area, do you feel there is a military operation?
Yes, because in most of the communities where the armed forces of the Philippines and their paramilitary groups have been going around, especially in Bukidnon, Davao del Norte, Compostela Valley, all provinces in the Caraga region, they are saying, the soldiers are saying that they are doing this to conduct operations against the New People's Army. They're looking for members or sympathizers of New People's Army in the area. And it's basically their open statement, no? So we don't need actually to define what is militarization, because clearly when they say, when troops of the AFP go into areas, into mountains, what are they there for? No? So it brings me to this question, especially to Lieutenant Colonel Obligado. If your definition of peace means 53 indigenous peoples in Mindanao getting killed, then that's the kind of peace that they want. Well, the AFP has many conflicting statements.
Okay.
No? They said they're looking for New People's Army, they're delivering peace, they're delivering services. These groups are not connected to them. They should get their storyline straight first.
Okay.
Well, I think our resource person from Karapatan cannot define what militarization is.
What for you is militarization?
Militarization, from the UN point of view, is an act of preparing the society for war or emergency. That is militarization. He's alluding to the militarization as the presence of military, and that's definitely wrong.
Do you consider the area an NPA stronghold?
Exactly.
It is an NPA
Yes, it is
stronghold?
an NPA stronghold. That's the reason why we are there. Because there are several, according to her, there are so many killings there already. But from our record, from 2003 to 2012, there are already 300 plus Datus who were killed by the New People's Army.
So we're having here two versions.
Yes, from our record.
Your version is
The NPAs are killing the Datus.
and
That's
your
the reason
version
why we are
is
there.
the military is conducting an operation where collateral damage are the certain individuals in the
They're not,
IP
in fact,
communities.
collateral damage because they are targets.
They are targets.
Alcadev, Executive Director Emerito Samarca is not a member of the New People's Army. In
I
fact,
heard.
he's a very known leader of...
And the way he died is something that I was shocked because
Precisely, his throat was
splitting the
slit,
throat, yeah.
his chest wounds were there on his chest. So, who are, in your definition,
Yes.
Lieutenant Colonel Obligado, who are members of the NPA? Is Emerito Samarca a member of the NPA? Is Jonel Campos a member of the NPA? I mean, who exactly are the NPAs are you talking about?
Well, actually, she's very wrong in accusing the military as the ones who killed the people of Mr. Samarca and others. She's very wrong. We categorically deny.
So who killed? Has there been a post-operation report of what really happened? I mean, there's accusation that paramilitary members have been tapped and certain Lumads have been used as guides.
That is another wrong statement being used as propaganda. Now, the military doesn't have any hand in the killing of Mr. Samarca and two others. They are accusing the military as organizing the paramilitary. In fact, I think Ms. Tina do not really know what the situation in the area is.
So what is the situation on the ground as far as the military is concerned?
There is an existing conflict between the New People's Army and the former members of the New People's Army.
Okay, and where are the former members? They're part of the community?
Yes, actually there was
They're
a coup d'etat.
Lumads?
Yes, there are Lumads there. That's the reason why we are there is to pacify. We are there for the peace and order. We are there to protect the people. We are not there, as she was saying, we are the ones who are responsible in the killing of Mr. Samarca and two others. And that's definitely wrong. She's lying.
So are you lying?
I will let the fact speak for itself. I mean, there are 60 people who witnessed the said killing. The witnesses came to Manila, recounted to us what happened in their community. The military was just 400 meters away looking on the community as the paramilitary officers were killing the people. And I marvel at how Lieutenant Colonel Obligado, at how he looks at lies and truths, given his boss, former General Jovito Palparan, comes from the same logic.
Well, you know, the burden of proof is with them.
But have you actually conducted?
Yes, of course.
There's already a report,
is
a
ongoing.
post-operation report.
And we have already
What is the
arrested.
report?
We have already the police. This is a law enforcement operation already. We are supporting the Philippine National Police in the investigation.
So why are you taking over? Why there's this allegation that you're taking over civilian facilities in the community?
That's another lie. That's another lie.
So you did not take
Of course
over the
not.
school?
We don't
did
have
not
any
take over-
authority. We don't have any authority to.
But you entered the community.
Because there was a report. The community, but not the facility.
Who called you? That report came from
there are a lot of
assets?
civilian. Of course, there are a lot of information that civilians are being harassed by the New People's Army. They are being tortured. Actually, the recent situation was there were 4 datus, there were 4 Lumads in Talaingod who are witnesses to a crime committed by certain groups in Davao City. And these datus were abducted by the New People's Army with the demand to withdraw the case.
Just
That's another situation.
one point I'd like to raise before we
Yes.
go to a break. How true, is it true therefore that there was a paramilitary group involved?
There is no paramilitary group involved.
You're denying that categorically?
Yes, there is no paramilitary group that is involved. What the group, the organization that's in there is an organization of the Lumads themselves. They are organizations of former NPAs who rebelled against the rebel because they no longer want the NPAs to be there. They want to live on their own.
Okay, we'll be back after a short break. Join our discussion on Facebook or tweet your thoughts using the hashtag CNNPHAgenda and CNN Philippines. Stay tuned, you're watching Agenda. Welcome back, you're still watching Agenda. Still with us, Karapatan Secretary General Cristina Palabay and Lieutenant Colonel Jake Obligado, Chief Information Officer of the Armed Forces Eastern Mindanao Command. Our agenda for today is the AFP to blame for the violence against Lumad tribes in Mindanao. We were discussing about paramilitary forces. And you have said categorically there was been no paramilitary involved at all.
There are no paramilitary involved.
Oh, okay. And Tinay has already mentioned, what are these groups, Tinay?
Magahat, Bagani, Nipar, Alamara, the Marcos Bocales group, the Kalpit Egwa group. Most of these groups are operating in the southern Mindanao region, Caraga, and the northern Mindanao region.
Okay. Colonel Obligado, are these names familiar to you?
Well, I think Cristina is not really familiar with what she's saying because she cannot even define what Bagani is.
What is Bagani for you?
Bagani is part of the indigenous political structure. It is not illegal according to the IPRA law, Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act. So Baganis are recognized by the tribes themselves. It is part of their political structure, part of the 3 political structure. The datus or the chieftains, the babaylan or the religious, and the Baganis, the cultural guards. The Baganis are the cultural guards of the ancestral domain.
But the Baganis are not armed.
It is up to the tribal chieftains. It is up to the tribe if they will arm them or not. But because that is their culture.
No, they're not armed with high-powered guns.
Supposed to be, but some already because of the technology. Some are legal, have possessions of.
So you're saying the Lumads have their own paramilitary?
It is a Bagani, not a military.
But it's doing the function of security.
We have to be very specific about that because of the respect of the culture, traditions of the Lumads. We need to understand that because the group of Ms. Cristina is wrongfully accusing the Baganis as the perpetrators.
Oh, let's ask her, are you wrongfully accusing the Baganis? First, do you know what a Bagani is?
Of course.
Okay.
And we know that they are important. Well, the Bagani, as defined in the indigenous traditions and culture of the indigenous peoples in Mindanao, are known leaders of their communities. What we were referring to as a paramilitary group is the one known as the Bagani, a different group. You know, this is a different set of Baganis created by the military. They are being recruited by the military precisely to bastardize the name of the Baganis in the traditional communities. The AFP is making this look like a tribal war, but in fact, the ways, the words, the money trail, the arms came from the new people, from the armed forces of the Philippines.
Let's assume the allegations are true. Isn't this a violation of international protocols on human rights and even our country's protocol on human rights? That's my first question. The other question is really, I've been asking for a post-operation. Have there been people sanctioned? even social media is hitting the AFP quite hard.
Firstly, it is not true. But assuming it is true,
Assuming it's true.
definitely there is an international humanitarian law violation. Secondly, I think Christina is not, she's justifying already what Bagani is. They've always been accusing the Baganis as the perpetrators, but now she's justifying that it is a different kind of Bagani. Definitely the point, because they do not really understand what the Baganis are.
Okay.
It is part of the culture. And thirdly, for the social media to accuse the military of these wrongdoings, I think they are less informed. We have to challenge the social media. We have to challenge also the media to really understand first what the indigenous people's rights act is.
So my question is, why is the AFP not doing a presentation to the public on what really happened?
Yes.
Because right now, everyone is hanging. Nobody knows what happened there.
Exactly.
It's your word versus their word.
Thank you. And thank you for that, because supposed to be our expertise is combat, our expertise is fighting. Now, it is not supposed to be the AFP who's explaining this. It has to be the local government. It has to be the National Commission on Indigenous Peoples. But
because there were accusations of rape, and now there's accusation of ethnocide. I mean,
yes, and we're very glad that we were invited to shed light from these to these issues, because definitely we have the answers. Firstly, we categorically deny that the military has something to do with the ethnocide. May mga killings of the Lumads, pero hindi mga military ang pumatay. And thirdly, siguro it is high time for us also to talk, just like what we're doing now. We also encourage everyone to understand the culture, the traditions of the Lumads, because they are the collateral, they are caught in between.
Iba yung kulturang pag-usapan, iba yung pagpatay.
Exactly.
Kasi kailangan muna natin i-address yung pagpatay.
The killings of the Lumad in Mindanao may be considered a form of ethnocide, but at the same time, the motives behind the killings should also be clarified. They suspect that most of the Lumads are members of the NPA. They have figures. 79% of the NPA fighters come from the Lumad communities.
Yun, infiltrated or influenced.
The NPAs, 3 out of 4.
In the Lumad itself.
3 out of 4 NPAs are Lumads.
In that area.
Yes, so that's showing that the NPAs exploits the Lumads.
But I think
That's
it's
a huge jump.
Yes, exactly. Because why is it that they are recruiting the Lumads? Well, in fact, the Lumads should be left there because of the IPRA law that we have. They have to govern themselves.
Coming from someone in Metro Manila, there's talk that what is happening there is because of mining and logging.
Yes.
Is there any truth to this?
Well, I think Christina here will not know of the previous agreements of the New People's Army and the Lumads. In 1994, there is a Malibay agreement between the Lumads and the NPA. So from that agreement alone, it shows that there is already a heavy presence of the New
And the
People's
agreement
Army.
is on what?
That the Lumads will have the say in the negotiations between all the businesses, all the transactions of the businessman, the
Logging and mining.
the Lumads will have their say. I mean,
Okay.
they have the authority.
Yes.
That was in 1994.
Yes.
In 2004, there was another agreement, the Malanday Agreement, between
Also
the
between NPA and the Lumads.
The Lumads. That
And the agreement is on?
NPAs grabbed the authority of negotiating with the business sector. Now, this situation has already aggravated because the Lumads already would want that the authority of negotiations should be given back to them.
So, Carl, you're saying with those several agreements apparently inked between the two parties outside of the formal government processes,
Yes, exactly.
You're supposed to protect whom? The Lumads?
Of course, the Lumads.
Yeah, so
We have to
why did
protect
this
the Lumads.
happen?
Because of the presence of the New People's Army.
One last point before I give you your final thoughts. Do you both agree with the suggestion of Secretary De Lima to have an independent interagency inquiry?
We believe in an independent investigation, and we strongly urge Secretary Laila de Lima to have an impartial view on the issue, especially since she has been to that area, to Lianga, Surigao del Sur, as early as 2009. But we also encourage independent foreign monitors to look into the issues.
Definitely, we are very open to that independent investigation. And from the end of the AFP, we will fully cooperate.
Okay, good. Final words, Tina.
This issue goes beyond ourselves, goes beyond, the horrors of what happened, has really unnerved even the most insensitive person traveling in EDSA, wading through all the traffic. And justice will always be sought, Justice will always be sought. We enjoin our kababayans and the international community to provide support for our Lumad community, especially those in the evacuation center.
Okay.
And as long as the military operations will continue, I think they would be unable to return to their communities.
Okay. Colonel?
Less information, or very little knowledge, or very little information is very dangerous.
Yeah.
Categorically speaking, we deny any hand on the killings of these the Samarca and the two others. Secondly, the main reason why the military is present in the area is because of is to protect the community from any harm given by, especially in these areas where the New People's Army is present. Third, the reason why there are NPAs here and some other organizations that are exploiting the Lumads is because of the less delivery of basic services by the government. And the delivery of basic services by the government is hampered by the presence of the armed group, the New People's Army. So the military comes in to clear the area, to drive away the New People's Army, so that the government services will come in, so that we can empower, we can alleviate the plight of the Lumites. Because the Lumads here are the ultimate victim. And we advocate for the full implementation of the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We would like to thank our guest, Karapatan Secretary General Cristina Palabay and Lieutenant Colonel Jake Obligado, Chief Information Officer of the Armed Forces Eastern Mindanao Command. That's all for the agenda. Tune in again next week as we take a stance on the issues affecting every Filipino. I am Malu Tikia. Good day.